Welcome to the Drone Network, the only podcast in the air and on the airwaves. I am your host, Bryce Bladen, and on this show, we document the tech, economics, and people piloting the world's largest standardized drone imagery network. Each episode, we explore how drones are reshaping industries, creating new economic opportunities, and literally changing how we see the world. On today's episode, we discuss geospatial data. What is it? What is the role drones play in its capture? And how is this data becoming a new form of infrastructure? Today's guest, Mason Pahl, Geospatial Data Lead at Spexi Geospatial. Mason's been flying drones since about 2016. That's over a decade of experience at the time of recording, and he's been a part of the Spexi team longer than I have, just over a year. Mason, welcome to the episode.
Hey, Bryce.
All right, why don't we just get right into it? Tell me about your role. What does a geospatial data lead do?
So I kind of handle the inputs and stuff that keeps the kind of network running. So with things that keep network safety visible, getting the missions launched, getting them planned out, and then from there handling the imagery itself, assembling and managing large volumes of data, delivering it to clients, and just making sure things work well on both ends of the pipeline.
So to put this in context for listeners, you're basically the human layer between a mission getting actioned one way or another on the Spexi app and it being flyable by pilots. Is that ostensibly correct?
Yeah, that's a good way of explaining it.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's quickly talk about what geospatial data even is. If someone has never thought about the geospatial data, why should they care about it or what happens to it?
On a simple level, it's just anything that you can represent physically in the world, like geographically, like an address or a postal or zip code. Things like just pins on Google Maps, your lines and tracks you record in Strava and running. Those are all just different types of geospatial data formats. And so these can be applied to almost anything that has some sort of physical attribute, like property, real estate, biology, and all sorts of like civil engineering projects. And
I've got a lot more geospatial data questions, but I'd like to talk a little bit more about your background first, especially because it's honestly so deep. How did you get into flying? Like what led you to flying drones in 2016?
I started my career in natural resources projects, and I was in forestry, and we would ride around on snowmobiles and basically create ortho imagery in kind of remote places with the drones so that we didn't have to snowshoe and hike around. At the time, I was their GIS analyst as well, so I was handling the data, but I was also kind of a mix of boots on the ground as well as the more technical side in the back end. So we started the drones weren't quite as like advanced then as they are now. So I started kind of slowly then at that time. So collecting the data as well as processing it, and kind of like Bluetooth speakers, drones have just kind of got better in quality and lower in price over the years. So in the last recent years, it's become more available for basically anyone to kind of get into the game.
Yeah, I'm going to need you to describe what you were doing with a snowmobile and drones, because conceptually that sounds like the coolest thing I've ever heard.
So you couldn't get there in a truck, so we're going to basically scan these trees in the forest. And there's 3 crews, so 6 guys on 3 snowmobiles. We'd strap a generator to the back to keep charging batteries, and then the drone as well. So then you just basically drone comes back, swap the batteries, send it back up, take another few hundred or 1,000 photos, and then at the end of the day, get back to the office and put like 15 SD cards on the desk, upload all the images, and do it again the next day.
That is a fascinating job. And you work in an office now.
That was a job for a young man. This is the natural progression.
Very fair. Did you come from a geospatial or mapping background, or did you come from the flying side? Like, how did you end up at this geospatial data central position?
Yeah, I started out basically, I went to university for it, for GIS. The flying came later. I started out more on the data side, which kind of gave me more of a foundation for the why I'm doing stuff with the drone itself, how it's used, why to the right conditions to collect your imagery, how you set your flight plans and so on.
Interesting. I'm really curious. What was the drone you were using? What was your first drone? And what do you wish you had known when you got started?
I don't know, taking care of your batteries for sure. Very first one in that job was DJI Inspire. Later on, about 4 years ago, I got a DJI Mavic Air 2 just for personal use, and that's kind of where when I started experimenting and doing projects that weren't necessarily just part of the job, but doing things like orbiting a grain tower or something, and start doing my own 3D modeling. That's when I kind of started to accelerate at the trade.
Very cool. All right, before I let you get off drones and drone gear, I'm curious, like, what's your go-to drone these days?
I still have the same Mavic Air 2. It's small. It's like big enough, has a decent camera, good battery life. That being said, from the professional drones, it's pretty hard to beat the DJI's M300s, 350s, and that's obviously a bigger enterprise level drone, but they're pretty awesome.
Very cool. All right, last drone gear setup. What does your kit look like when you head out to shoot on the sunny islands of BC or whatever?
Kind of depends what I'm doing, but if it's, more weather adverse or I need to pack light, then it's pretty much as simple as the drones, the batteries. Make sure you have SD cards, because that's a classic mistake, not bringing the memory card and not having any room to store your media. And otherwise, if I'm doing a more survey level event, I always bring a generator so that I can keep multiple sets of batteries charging and keep the drone in the air.
Very cool. All right. I want to talk about geospatial data a little bit more, but I kind of want to put these missions in context for people listening to this show. So walk me through a mission, like from the moment it's decided, this location, this city, this whatever needs to be captured, to the moment a pilot flies it. Like, what is happening behind the scenes in that process?
So it starts out with basically the deliverable. What's being asked for, right? Is it kind of top-down ortho imagery, like bird's eye view? Are we looking for more of a 3D product that captures all angles and facades, or is it more of just like a browsing and viewing kind of Google Street View looking kind of photosphere? And from then, so we decide now we know what we're doing, and then next in the meeting to know where it is. So either a client or someone will send kind of like a boundary, like I want this city block to be imaged. So once we know where it is and what we're doing, then we start just doing some safety checks. So first thing you check for is kind of more administrative constraints like airspace or restrictions that would, could get you in trouble for flying it over top of a prison or anything like that. And after you get through the planning level administrative constraints, you have to obviously do your safety obstruction checks to make sure it's like the mission, the drone it's an automated flight path, right? So it's not just going to go straight into the side of a building or a cell tower or some kind of tall obstruction. Yeah, and then once that's all hopefully clear, then you can just get after it or get authorization from the necessary authorities if you have to. Bring your SD card, bring your batteries, and start collecting data.
Very cool. So basically, typically speaking, at least for the demand-led missions, client comes to Spexi. Spexi verifies how it can be flown. It gets added to the LayerDrone network as a flyable mission. And then a pilot using the Spexi app can fly it, upload their data, and Bob's your uncle. Makes sense. So what I'd be really curious about is where does this data go? What's an interesting real-world application of data being captured on the LayerDrone network right now? What is something that would maybe surprise people about how it's being used?
So the digital twins are basically, kind of think of it as Tron. Basically, we can make 3D models and update stuff in real time. So that's happening for a few clients, which is pretty cool. Large scale infrastructure projects, so highways and bridges. They like to use those. Some for golf courses, some for just there was a project where the police were monitoring the festival, actually using kind of real-time drone data submissions. So they had a kind of aerial view just to make sure that places weren't getting overcrowded and where potential problem points could be. So there's a lot of applications beyond just real estate photography and civil construction stuff.
Absolutely. That police one is particularly interesting to me because when I first heard about it, I assumed some kind of people monitoring, but my understanding was that it was actually A, flown at a level where faces weren't necessarily identifiable, but B, was more driven by understanding, as you described, where crowds were moving, how they were moving, and if there were any potential issues with how they were forming, which is very interesting. It's not an application, particularly one for law enforcement, I would have ever considered. On that note, you used to be the coolest man in the world, get your snow dogs, some snowmobiles, your mobile generators, and your flying robots, and you basically work as a crew. So I'm really curious, now that you are doing mission design for thousands, tens of thousands of pilots. Like, what's the difference between working with a distributed network like that and working with a, I'm going to say, traditional survey crew, with the understanding that traditional isn't necessarily snowmobiles and mobile generators and yada, yada, yada?
Yeah, of course. Well, for that one, when you're planning the mission for yourself, you're kind of looking more directly at the site, right? That when there's hundreds or thousands of missions happening at the same time, it's the nature of the problem changes, right? To be able to stay, I guess, diligent enough to make sure you're not putting other pilots at risk, because you're basically creating their flight plans for them. And by kind of removing that control, you can potentially put them in, situations they shouldn't be in, right? So that side of it is certainly different, creating missions from the office without ever having gone to, somewhere in the UK or, southeastern USA. You just have to trust the processes that you've made, right? And the reliability of the data that you use to create the plans. So that can be a little, makes you nervous at first, but over time, the percentages of successful missions are quite high. So it's gotten more comfortable with it recently.
Excellent. All right. One last question before I try to throw you to our hit segment. How do you explain what you do to people who have no idea what drone mapping is?
I need to figure that out. I can't even explain it to my own family at this point.
I was going to say, I'm running into this issue with my mom.
The simplest way is to say I make maps. But I don't do as much cartography as I once did. But yeah, drone surveying. I just say I'm use drones for surveying, create aerial imagery. I try to keep it simple, for sure. When your job is too hard to explain, people's face go blank a little bit. So.
Yeah. All right. Good answer. Okay. Last question. Do you have time to join in on our hit segment? Well, I was going to call it Drone or Don't, but I guess that's a different version of this hit segment. I'm going to tell you 2 facts about drones and a lie, and I want you to tell me which one of them is a lie. Do you care to join me for this?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. I'm going to tell you 3 facts about drones. I'm going to give you 1, 2, then 3. Then I want you to tell me which one is the lie. You ready?
Let's go.
All right. Fact number 1. The U.S. military used a drone to draw propaganda leaflets over enemy territory as far back as World War II. Fact number 2. The word drone for unmanned aircraft was popularized by a 1930s British target drone called the DH-82B Queen Bee. Fact 3. The FAA's first ever approved commercial drone operation was for aerial photography on a Hollywood film set. 3 facts, one of them's a lie.
I'm hoping the U.S. propaganda one is the lie.
Unfortunately, it is not. And fun fact, drones have been used in war as early as 1850 when Austria and the Vatican were at war. Austria tried to launch a bunch of drones with fused bombs on them from a boat and from Austria to attack Vienna, Venice. Regardless, maybe one landed in the city, the rest landed on the boat and in Austria.
Wow.
So it didn't go great. But no, the U.S. military did use a drone to drop propaganda leaflets over quite a few places.
Wow.
No, the lie was actually the FAA's first ever approved commercial drone operation. Not at all related to Hollywood. It was for everyone's favorite company, BP, and their oil field surveying operations in Alaska in 2014.
That would have been my second choice.
Oh, well, yeah, I saw it in your face. All right, Mason. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate all your insights, and I hope you have a good one.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bryce.
Thank you. Thanks for being a part of the Drone Network. Subscribe wherever fine podcasts are served to get a new episode every week. And remember to leave us a 5-star review on your podcast app of choice. It helps a lot. Today's show was sponsored by Spexi Geospatial and LayerDrone. Learn more about standardized drone imagery built for global scale at spexi.com, that's SPEXI.com, and layerdrone.org. Thanks again for listening.